Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our virtual panel discussion on events and experiential marketing during COVID-19. I'm Claire Holland, and I'm the VP of Marketing Communications at Agency EA, and we are so thrilled to welcome all of you to this discussion with our panelists from McDonald's, Verizon Media, LinkedIn, and Hilton, who will meet in just a moment. First, I'd like to introduce you to my co-moderator, Kristen Liggett, Group Account Director at Agency EA. Hey, Kristen.
Hey, Claire. Again, I'm Kristen, and I'm excited to be here today with the leaders we have on our panel to discuss the changes in our industry.
Me too. As a full-service brand experience agency that specializes in event and experiential marketing, EA has witnessed and experienced firsthand the impact that this pandemic has had on our industry. However, we also want to acknowledge that even after we scheduled this panel, we've witnessed the onset of an international movement sparked by the brutal killings of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Rayshard Brooks, and countless others, amplified by decades of social injustice, police brutality, and systemic racism.
We would be remiss not to acknowledge how the recent protests and riots, which are continuing as we speak, have generated important conversations and reflection, and demanded accountability from law enforcement, government officials, and policymakers. Brands and agencies alike have joined in the movement, and while we cannot represent the panelists and brands on today's event, Agency EA stands in solidarity with the Black community and is taking action to fight racism and social injustice. We're also working to promote diversity within our own organization. You can learn more about these efforts at agencyea.com.
Thanks, Kristen. Again, today we're focusing on how COVID-19 is impacting these brands and the event industry at large. And now, just 90 days into the sweeping stay-at-home orders, travel restrictions, and event cancellations, we thought it was an opportune time to bring together industry experts to discuss how their organizations have weathered the storm, pivoted their event strategies, and quickly shifted to virtual event formats. And of course, discuss what they've learned from all of it.
And as a quick note before we get started, throughout the panel discussion today, we welcome you to submit questions using the Q&A feature. All the submissions will be sent directly to a member of our team who's monitoring them, and we'll be sure to leave time at the end of the panel to address. Also, a special thanks to our fantastic panelists for dedicating time out of their busy days to be with us and share their insights. Now I'd like to introduce them. Let's start with Stephanie from McDonald's.
Hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. I'm Stephanie Burns, and I am an account lead at our McDonald's in-house agency called Agency 123. And I lead our account team with our various internal clients throughout the organization for communications, government relations, and just within those two categories, we've been really busy.
Thanks. Kelly?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kelly Nolan. I'm Vice President of Sales Engagement and Special Events with Hilton. I'm based out of Orlando, and my team manages all of Hilton's customer-facing events, any industry events that our sales organization participates in, and our brand and owner conferences.
Great, thanks. Charlie.
Hi, everyone. I'm Charlie Etter from Verizon Media, coming at you here from Chicago. Verizon Media is the tech arm of Verizon, and so my team works horizontally across the business with any of our large internal events, any of our B2C events with the brands under the house, Yahoo News, HuffPost, TechCrunch, and many more. And a majority of the work we do is in the B2B space. So I'm excited to be here.
Great, thank you. And lastly, we have Laura from LinkedIn. Laura?
Hi, everybody. Also excited to be here. My name is Laura Parkinson. I'm on the global event marketing team at LinkedIn. And I lead industry and sponsored events for two of our key business lines, our talent solutions and our learning solutions businesses. Looking forward to the discussion.
Great, thank you. Thanks, everybody. And now let's get started with why everyone is really here today. And Stephanie, I'm going to start with you. I'd like you to take yourself back to the onset of the stay-at-home orders. How are your teams initially reacting to the changes then as compared to how you're handling things now?
Absolutely. So we had just gotten back from 2 live events in Las Vegas and Atlanta when the stay-at-home orders came down. We were so shocked that it was happening, and we figured it would only be about 2 weeks, and we were really wrong. Like many others, we quickly shifted into our remote working and a lot of crisis communication. Obviously, it was hard at first because the information was constantly changing, and it's really important for us to keep our restaurants informed so that they can ensure the safety of all of our crew members and all of our customers. And with that information changing, we were constantly changing and pivoting. Now things are going much more smooth, and we've settled into a long-term remote working solution, and we've established a regular communications cadence with both our audience and all of our clients. And again, our primary focus continues to be the safety of all of our crew and our customers. And slowly we're starting to shift now into, again, regular cadence with planning about what's next. How are we going to get out of this reaction phase and move into recovery phase?
Awesome. Thanks, Stephanie. Speaking of recovery, have any of you executed events or experiential programs, whether they were hybrid or fully virtual, in these past 3 months? You know, and how did they go? What were highlights or challenges you encountered? Laura, do you want to kick us off?
I'd love to. So at LinkedIn, our early efforts have largely been focused on community building. So these are smaller, more intimate virtual events like roundtables, panels, and they've really served as a good way for us to meet our audiences where they are, kind of listen to them and really provide support. So I will say we've also been producing experiences for our internal LinkedIn audiences. And that's really served as a good safe space for us to test different approaches. Something as simple as, audience engagement decisions around using a Zoom webinar versus a traditional Zoom meeting platform provides a whole new set of factors to think through. You know, do you want the speakers to be able to see and interact with the audience? Should it be more of a delivering content type approach? So those internal experiences have been key for that. And then I think, like many companies right now, we're navigating this world of virtual event platforms. I don't think anyone was truly prepared for the boom that would happen around virtual events. And so in relation to that, many of these platform vendors have had much more demand than they're used to. And for us, that just means this large expectation on these vendors has, really caused slower response times, and it's harder for us to engage. And then I think another really good thing is within the company, we've really opened the lines of communication for anyone who may be responsible for managing virtual events, just sharing best practices, creating a community around the work itself, supporting each other.
Amazing, thank you. Charlie, how about you? I know at Verizon Media, you guys have been able to put on a couple virtual programs. Will you tell us about those?
Yeah, totally. So we've done a lot, actually, and I'm super proud of the team and what we've been able to accomplish. One event in particular is our largest global internal event. So it's normally 12,000 employees, a one-day event that we put a lot of time in throughout the year. This time, similar to what Stephanie was saying, we had 3 weeks to pivot. It was right when stay-at-home orders were happening, and we just had to ask ourselves, are we going to continue or are we not? And we totally gamified the experience. We made a virtual kind of online game experience out of it. There was a leaderboard, there was trivia, and it was such a success that I think we're going to keep it going forward, whether that's a hybrid model or if it just becomes fully virtual. So that's one I'm super proud of. In the B2B space, we took what was going to be a 5-hour Yahoo Sports B2B event at a training facility in New Jersey and turned it into a 28-minute piece of content with a VIP experience. That was awesome. I don't think we ever would have thought we could fit 5-6 hours with travel into 28 minutes, but awesome survey results there. And then we're seeing on the B2C side, our TechCrunch brand has a subscriber model, ExtraCrunch. They fully jumped on the events bandwagon by doing a lot for their VIP members, and they've seen like 600% growth in new subscribers just because of virtual events. So so far so good. We'll see where it takes us, but we've done a fairly good job over the last few months.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Kelly, you're kind of in a unique position because not only do you lead special events for Hilton, but you're also, of course, Hilton's also serving as a venue for those events around the globe. Can you talk a little bit about Hilton's experience over the past several months and if this crisis has brought about any change in how you offer events?
Yeah, so sadly, we announced the elimination of many of our corporate roles yesterday. So it's been a really difficult time for our company and for my team. So we're losing some incredibly smart and talented people. And I know it's the same for everyone in our industry. But this has been a really challenging time for many of our hotels because they've lost some major events due to cancellations. So we've been working very closely with our hotels and our ownership groups to put in place some more flexible cancellation policies for events. And we've been really encouraged to see that we're starting to get more bookings for later this year and definitely into 2021. So that's good news. But we've also taken this time to sort of pause and step back and look at this opportunity to how are we going to get more innovative and in our event space. And we've really been thinking very deliberately and creatively about how the meeting of the future is going to look. So that's been the good news out of this.
Great. Building off of that, Kelly, I know we can all agree that there's a certain magic that comes with in-person events and experiences. Charlie, for you, because you've done a couple virtual programs, and how have you been able to find effective ways to replicate that magic in the virtual space? What touch points or tactics are you utilizing to stay engaged with your audience?
Yeah, great question. On the Yahoo Sports event I just mentioned, for example, we used a tool called Fan Gauge. And so the in-person event was going to feature 2 NFL quarterbacks. We were like, oh crap, what are we going to do now? Someone on the team found this amazing vendor where we could do virtual autographs. So we had people submit photos through the registration process. They were split into groups, and you kind of created that VIP experience for folks virtually. And so the one good thing, as Laura was saying about platforms just being inundated right now, there is also the opposite of that, which is just there is so much out there that I don't think we ever even knew before. So that was one example. Another example, we just did an event last week for 180 of our top execs. We sent them kits to their homes beforehand that featured materials they would need during the session. It included some things they could do with their family. It was, just this kind of thoughtful box of things that we thought would kind of brighten up their day a little bit before they sat down for a 2-day internal meeting. So, we're trying to find those little things that, in the live event space, I think we just kind of did naturally. And in this, environment, just try to be really intentional and thoughtful about, what we're sending into someone's homes or what we could do to kind of bring as much of the physical space online as possible. So those are 2 examples.
Oh, those are great. Those are really interesting. Thanks, Charlie. Stephanie, I have a question for you. How have your priorities shifted within your organization over the past 3 or so months? Are you messaging to or engaging with your audiences any differently?
Absolutely, we are. About a month out from the crisis, we were knee deep in planning our worldwide convention. That was supposed to be in April. And we were straight on focused on communicating the future. What does our business plan look like? Where are we headed? And so that came to an abrupt stop, and we shifted, like I mentioned, to be reactionary and getting the health and safety information out to our restaurants. To date, we have conducted over 60 live stream events, whether it's to the US system or globally or to owner operators. We've done 60 live streams, and that's a lot for us. I would say that historically we've only done maybe 20 all year. So it was a huge learning opportunity for us as we shifted, and that came from the crisis. How quickly could we get the information out to our folks?
Great. Kelly, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, we've really been working really closely with our Hilton worldwide sales teams and our own property teams just to regularly keep our customers updated on what we're working on. And that's been really important for us to give our customers and any event planners the confidence to travel again, and gather again. So what we found is by doing those, webinars like this and getting everyone together in small groups, we can really listen to our customers and hear what's going on in their world, what they're experiencing, what they're planning for the future. And it's really helped us define and develop our next steps. So it's been a really good experience.
Thanks, Kelly. I think that's a great segue in terms of collecting that audience insight and information into our next topic, everyone's favorite topic, which is measurement. Can you guys tell us a little bit about how you're measuring virtual events differently than how you were measuring physical or in-person events? Are you looking at different KPIs? Is the ROI different? Are the outcomes different? Laura, maybe we start with you on that one.
Sure, absolutely. Right now, the most important thing for us is really continuing to leverage creative and fun ways to authentically connect with our audiences in this moment. So, for example, we've been listening in these smaller kind of environments to what they need or what they would like to hear. And then we curate helpful content kind of around that. So it's super targeted. We're also, post-event, we're collecting sound bites and conversations that help us understand whether or not an experience was useful. And then, we always tap into NPS feedback as well to kind of gauge how the event landed and how it hit. And then we also know that relationships in this moment are pretty critical. We know that the relationships we build today will be what sets us up to have meaningful and impactful engagements for years to come.
Awesome. Stephanie, what about you? I think you guys have been doing some interesting things at McDonald's and 123 with metrics and post-event measurement in the virtual space as well.
Yep, we've taken a look at metrics differently. We know that our attendees, their time is limited, and we want to make sure that the information we're sharing with them is relevant. So we've changed our post-event survey to have one question, and it only asks very simply, yes or no, was this webcast helpful? Then there's also the option to fill in an open text box where they can provide more detail or thoughts and feedback. And surprisingly, we've seen a huge increase in these responses. Our responses previously were hit or miss. Sometimes folks would participate in the survey, sometimes not. But this consistently has had a great response, and it's been able to help us drive the next live stream. What's the content for the next thing? It's coming directly from our audiences just by changing that one question, simplified the whole process.
I think that's such a great insight, and I assume maybe something you'll carry forward for future event measurement techniques as well.
We'll see how long this new habit lasts. Sometimes we get data greedy, so we'll have to see, but I hope it lasts. It's been really effective.
That's great. Charlie, what about you in terms of the virtual events you guys have been able to put on? How is the measurement piece of that changing and looking for Verizon Media?
Well, first of all, I'm stealing that idea. So I think if anyone from my team is listening, we should cut that down. We have 3. We thought we were being good with 3 consistent questions that we started doing, but I think 1 is even better. So that's awesome. I would say 2 things. One is it's business as usual in many respects, right? Like we still have to show ROI against the business. We still have a needle that we need to move forward. So in many respects, we're still trying to collect, the same information that we would collect before. The second thing I would say, though, is that it's just been super insightful to really dig into the data. As much as we said we did before, you'd look at a post-event survey, or you had a lot of anecdotal information, or you talked to some people. But the amount of detail we can now take. So, for example, the big event I talked about at the beginning, we kind of just, had someone from Taipei say I had 800 people show up, but we didn't really know, the full metrics across the globe about what participation was. But with this new gamified experience, we could actually see like this IP logged on, but never went past section 2. This person completed the whole experience. And that's not meant to be creepy, but it's meant to, just gather so much data. We were able to see like what content did people log off on, and we kind of learned like, okay, well, maybe it's not that person next time who speaks, or maybe it needs to be, you're just learning so much, I think, about content in particular, and kind of what works and what doesn't work. And you guys have all, talked about this already a little bit, but we as a team at least have really tried to say like, okay, we're going to dedicate time and sit down after each experience to dig into that data, because if you didn't, you'd be wasting, the value that comes from these experiences. So I'm going to steal Stephanie's idea, but then, a lot of it has been really helpful so far.
That's great. This panel was worth it for that exchange of information. Charlie, just so that we can hit on this before we move on to our next topic, we got a question from Angela who asked for a little bit more detail about the kit that you sent out. Can you give any more information on that? What was included?
I can. Yes, I can. And I'll give a plug to the vendor. We use a vendor that's awesome. We've used before, called Two Paper Dolls. And it included a number of things. So the box included, a note that said this box has been sanitized. The items inside have been sanitized, to the point about being really thoughtful, intentional about, people are still nervous about what gets shipped to their homes these days. It included a puzzle. that tied back to the fact that, you know, we're taking up a lot of your time, and we want to give you time back, you know, after work has ended, to maybe work on this with your family or your partner. It included a book that laddered back to the theme we were doing. It included candy. It included some cocktail making kits. Included Legos, because it was part of a session we were doing on day 2. And really, it goes out to my team who worked on this, but it was just, you know, it was a thoughtful mix of items that, you know, like always, it's interesting when you put, you know, hours and hours and hours into an event, the little things that people write you back about or send you pictures on. It's like, you didn't think it was maybe going to be that thing, but we got tons of input on just the fact that it got them excited about the experience. They got it a couple of days before. They had, you know, we had people send in pictures of them doing the puzzle or playing with the Legos with their kids. So again, it kind of just brought kind of that humanity and that human touch to the experience, even though we weren't together in person.
That's great. That's actually kind of a nice segue, Charlie, because we've been talking so much about the virtual events and how are we leveraging the power of the internet. But I think that there's a lot of people out there. There's a lot of questions on whether or not any of you are planning any physical events currently. And if you are, what do those events look like? How are you handling the potential lingering apprehensions that people will have around mass gatherings? Obviously, there's such a concern, Charlie, even you mentioned with the kits in terms of safety and what has been touched. So I'm just kind of curious to hear from you all about what you're thinking in terms of those physical events and when you would be thinking about putting them into place. So Laura, maybe you want to tell us a little bit about whether or not you've got anything on the books for a physical event?
Yeah, you know, at the moment, our focus has really steered away from planning in-person events. I think like most, we're just monitoring the industry and the guidance from the leading health organizations to make the decisions and give the guidance that's the safest and most informed for everyone involved. I think as we get closer to fall, we'll start to pick up those conversations again and the planning for face-to-face based on what's happening in that moment. So, you know, we've also proactively started developing a whole set of criteria for what we need to be thinking about, the questions we need to be asking ourselves as we start to think about making some of those decisions and start to plan long-term. You know, just a couple, like from an industry perspective, does the show organizer have a clear safety plan in place? What does that look like? Are we feeling comfortable about that? And then, you know, from a contractual standpoint, you know, if we were to sign, what kind of flexibility comes with that? What are the clauses we need to be thinking about? And then from a budgetary standpoint, what does this tie us to? What are the implications to help us really with the long-term thinking?
Yeah, thanks. I'm sure there are so many of us that are out there that have long lists of things that we need to consider, contingency plans and the like. So thank you for adding to that. Stephanie, do you have anything on the calendar right now for any of your in-person events?
Like Laura said, we don't have anything planned or a date when we can start anticipating in-person events, whether they're meetings or events. However, we too have started a long list of things to consider when the time is right. And we do plan to over-communicate, over-plan, and potentially overstaff just to make sure that everyone feels safe and everyone can come and leave healthy. That's obviously most important. Technology is also going to continue to play a huge role in whatever the next looks like. We will probably continue to use live streams for communication updates as we build out what those events look like. And we'll heavily rely on our mobile app during an event to keep all of our attendees up to date with things that are going on prior to their travel, upon arrival, and once they get home. Also, as I mentioned, when the time is right and we do return to in-person events, I know that our community is dying to get back together. We're a people company and everyone values that in-person magic that you mentioned so much, whether it's networking or camaraderie or learning. But we're going to continue to balance that desire to get together against the safety, again, of our employees, franchisees, and suppliers. We are starting to look at some instances of doing a hub and spoke model of meetings and events where we would have a national or market-based meeting. And then from there, it's we would do it either virtually or bring that group together. And then from there, everyone goes out to their respective markets and shares it in person. This is our best way at keeping attendees close to their restaurants, which keeps the restaurants at the forefront of all decisions that are being made.
Great. I know a lot of us are also thinking, you know, we're such people companies. We want to get back together with our people. So hopefully that day will come soon. But of course, putting the right safety measures in place. And that kind of brings me to you, Kelly. Again, not only from a planning standpoint, but from a hosting standpoint. Can you talk to us a little bit about what in-person events look like for you, will look like for you in the future?
Yeah, so our hotels, many of them have had some suspended service and aren't open right now, but many of them are open. So they are still hosting events. And so what we've done from the corporate level is we've put together a couple different initiatives to address our customers' concerns about getting back together in person. So, you know, the well-being of our guests and team members are, of course, always our highest priority. And so you may have heard in the news, you know, we partnered with Lysol and the Mayo Clinic, and we've launched Hilton's Clean Stay initiative just to elevate that level of cleanliness and, you know, disinfecting and everything that needs to happen to give our customers that assurance and peace of mind when they do come back into the properties and they start gathering again. And from the meetings and event space, we are launching an initiative that's a follow-up to Clean Stay called Hilton Event Ready with Clean Stay. So again, you know, I talked about those little small group gatherings we've done with our customers, and we've really listened to what they were looking for. And, you know, it's all about cleanliness, being flexible, safe, socially responsible, all backed by, of course, you know, Hilton hospitality, which we're known for. So some of the elements that we're pulling into our Event Ready program, it's creative food and beverage, technology resources, we're elevating those standards, setup solutions. You know, our customers have come to us and we as the planners, you know, we're looking for solutions. And so we're going to put together what we're calling a Hilton Event Ready Playbook. That is a playbook of resources for all of our customers with solutions in technology, food and beverage, wellness, setup standards, all of the things in like a one-stop shop. So we're really looking to get people back into the buildings and having events and gathering together as soon as possible. And we want to help our customers, of course, reach their objectives, but keeping safety and security in mind at all times.
Thank you guys so much for all of that insight. And it is just so much, obviously, to think about and a lot of responsibility on everyone's shoulders to ensure that safety. Going back to the virtual event side, I think a lot of us initially felt like, and maybe still feel like, okay, we're in a position due to the pandemic where we are forced into this virtual event space. But there have been some happy accidents, right? Or some wins and unexpected benefits from being forced into virtual events. You guys have touched on some of them already, but are there elements from producing virtual events that you will take with you into the post-pandemic world and these, again, unexpected wins and benefits? Laura, any thoughts there?
Absolutely. You know, I think one of the biggest wins is it feels like this whole thing has brought our industry so much closer together. It's really created this culture of, you know, wanting to discuss, listen, help each other, as what we're all navigating for most is uncharted waters. So
I agree.
Yeah. And that kind of then begs the question, though, how are you how are you handling some of the challenges that you've experienced shifting into the virtual events? Those were a lot of the wins, and I think that that's, you know, a lot of really great things to be talking about, but just kind of curious about some of those, the harder times, the more challenging times. Charlie, do you want to talk to us a little bit about some of the challenges that you faced while you've been planning?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of them are obvious. Technology is new to a lot of this technology is new. I for one didn't go into this being like I'm an expert at virtual events. Like it's been a lot of learnings, and so the things that you felt like when you're on site, when you're in person, that you just knew how to control naturally because we've all done this for so many years. the event we did last week, you know, we had kind of this virtual command center, and it was like all of these computers, and I didn't even know how to work half of them, but you know, just the challenges of the unknown, particularly in the technology space, because you're so reliant on a platform, or you're so reliant on someone who's more of an expert on it than you. That's been scary, but I think, you know, with all those learnings, you know, you take them away to the next experience. I think, you know, we've tried our best to kind of find that spark of interpersonal relationship building and all of those things that you miss when you're not together in person. You know, I don't think we've cracked the nut on any of those things. We've made these small examples of where I think we've done a good job, but you know, I think a couple of you guys mentioned this already, but there's also just this flood of information. So even just being able to take a step back and kind of really try to focus on not just what your own goals are, but like what really are our options out there, whether it's being flooded by platforms or vendors or third parties or internal stakeholders. So I do feel like 3 months in, we've kind of, you know, we're not drowning anymore. And so one of the challenges has been just kind of like sifting through and trying to find some sense of normalcy again. And I think we're almost there, but you know, we're making progress. So day by day.
Yeah. Stephanie, what about you in terms of wins? And again, I love that ROI and measurement example, but I think you have some others just about those unexpected benefits that came out of the shift to virtual.
Yeah, for us, we communicate a lot to our franchisees, and sometimes historically they've been very reluctant to change and technology, but surprisingly, they have had no choice, and they've learned to embrace this technology, and they've welcomed the virtual meetings that they've had. Shockingly, our attendance skyrocketed, and it's stayed consistent throughout all the communication touch points that we've had, which is humongous for us. I do think that also a win for our department, being an in-house agency, we've been able to be really scrappy with the way we work. We have to work with IT a lot like everybody else, and we've got to work with our operations teams and things like that, and it's paid off for us. We had a virtual event that needed to reach 5,000 people in 26 different countries, and listening to their questions and responding, and it was all live. And we were able to use a combination of our internal tools that already have been vetted, have already been approved by IT, that were already in our toolbox, and just think about how to use them in different ways to meet that need. So that was great. Which has led us to be even more agile than we've ever been before. Our team and our clients too have been really game for trying any solution. If it doesn't work, oh well, we've learned from it, let's move on. There's not time to linger on a failure. And like I mentioned, our internal clients have been supportive of this approach because it just gets their messaging out there more efficiently, more effectively. So I'm sure that we're gonna find ways to integrate some of these wins and virtual tactics into our live events moving forward.
Awesome. Charlie, we've got another audience question from you about the virtual autographs. Can you share the vendor name or how that worked?
Yes, the vendor was FanGauge. And they basically have a tool that they sign, you know, so like everyone submitted a photograph, or in some cases, if someone didn't submit a photograph, it was kind of like a stock photo, and then it's kind of queued up. And then the quarterback had an iPad in front of them that they, you know, like talked to the person for a little bit and had a little banter back and forth like we're having, and then they signed the autograph virtually, and then we sent that to everybody afterwards. And this vendor does a number of other things as well, so I would look into them if you guys are interested in that. Rachel on my team who found them, who may be watching, she sits in Chicago with me also, has been talking to them for a while. They do a number of things in the sports space. I think what's interesting is how we take some of that same technology and experiences and maybe bring it to music, or to, you know, we have other lines of business that aren't sports that happen to just work perfectly for a quarterback signing an autograph. But that same line of thinking and how you can make a really special moment for a B2B client who's just thinking they're attending, you know, a content session is something we do want to try to take across to other content verticals and other events going forward.
I love that. We will continue to take some more live questions, but before we do, we were already kind of starting to get into this, but I'd love to just dig into a little bit more on trends or predictions that you all have for the future of events. It sounds like the consensus is we're not putting anything on the books yet for an in-person program, but when we do, how are you planning for that, thinking about 2021 or 2022, knowing what we know now? Kelly, do you want to start us off there?
Yeah, for sure. So we are already working on our 2021 customer engagement plan. So we will definitely have in-person events next year. So really looking forward to that. And later this year too, there are still some on the books that we're working towards. And then 2022, definitely, I don't know if it's good news or bad news, but I'm trying to book a really large conference here in Orlando in my backyard, and there's not as many date options as I'd like. So that's good news for 2022. So definitely moving forward with the big conferences as well for 22. But in the meantime, some of the trends that we're seeing, for sure, hybrid is here to stay for the foreseeable future. And so I love some of these ideas that I've heard, because I think engagement is key. Like we've talked a little bit about, whether it's a box in advance or, maybe it's coffee or cocktail gift cards to go in advance, things like that are going to be key to keep the audience engaged for virtual and hybrid. And then I think Stephanie also mentioned the hub and spoke idea. And I think we're going to see a lot of that for regional meetings that maybe have hybrid connections out to other offices or home-based offices. And that's, again, I think something that we'll see a lot of. A couple other things, I think we're going to have to really get creative with individual food and beverage servings. Buffets will look different. We're not going to have people serving their own buffets. There'll be attended served buffets and stations. We're going to see a lot of innovative technology, and another one is going to be, I think we'll see a lot of non-traditional event spaces. Like, imagine using a parking lot for networking reception and getting real creative with that because of the physical distancing requirements that are going to be around for a little bit. So lobbies, maybe it's beaches, some different areas to have events that maybe we haven't necessarily used before. So we're going to have to get creative.
Thank you. Laura, what about you? Trends and predictions for the future of events?
Yeah, I think if there's anything this moment has underscored, it's that, humans really need in-person, face-to-face interaction. That is definitely not optional. And then at the same time, the digital elements of our experiences and events have opened a whole new kind of facet of audience reach. So I think we'll continue to see more of a hybrid model as well. So incorporating both of those mediums into our long-term event strategies. So there's that. And then, I think we're seeing innovation happen in real time. We're seeing more and more just kind of slowly come to the forefront. Last week was the Snap Partner Summit. And it really combined a couple of pretty innovative technologies from green screen to AR. So I think we'll see more and more kind of come to light like that.
I loved watching that content. That was a great example. Charlie, what about you? Predictions and thoughts for the future?
Well, I think you just touched on it too. I think one is content. Content has always been king, but I think the focus on content now is even more important. So what is truly engaging in this environment? Is there a way to look at a lot of that data to find out what we could change or pivot on? Not everything has to be, the same agenda year over year, ending with the keynote, et cetera, et cetera. So I think like really focusing on what content can be engaging in this environment is one. Two, I would say gamification. A lot of the brands that you have seen be really successful have been kind of those gaming brands over the last couple of months. So what we can do to kind of increase engagement in that space and really, take advantage of this opportunity sitting in front of a computer or being on our mobile phone. So I think gamification is something that could be super fun going forward. I agree with everything that was just said. I think the big macro piece that I hope that we take away is just this kind of spirit of innovation and creativity. I think, you know, I'd like to think that me and the team and everyone on this call, I'm sure didn't just kind of like rest on our laurels before when it came to the high bar we set for ourselves. But I think we were forced to be thrown into thinking about everything really differently and trying to be innovative. You know, I loved what Stephanie said about there's no time to fail, or whatever that was that you said. I loved that line. So maybe come back on and say what that was. Again, I tried to write the quote down, but clearly I can't do that fast enough. But you know, we did before in this space, like say that, hey, we're creating this environment where it's okay to fail. But in this case, we really already have in some respects in these virtual settings, and to be okay with that. And we all set such a high bar for ourselves, I think is super important. So just that kind of spirit of collaboration, which Laura touched on, and everything else, I think, you know, is something I hope as a team and an industry, we all take away going forward. So I hope that's a trend that sticks.
Thanks, Charlie. I do want to confirm for you and the audience, because we've been getting some questions, and I'll confirm we are recording this. So if you want to rewind and hear Stephanie's direct quote, we will have a recording that will be sent out to all registrants following the program. So
I think it was no time to linger on a failure, right? Was that
You got it, Charlie. There's no time to linger on failure.
Good. I didn't linger on that failure with me just messing up the quote. So I just kept going. Thank you.
Well, that is great. I think that there are definitely some silver linings that are coming out of all of this, and people are starting to learn how they can push the boundaries, do things they didn't think that they could have ever done before, and really learning a lot about how they can create hybrid models in the future. So I think, you know, with all of the challenges that we've all been facing, there's definitely been some good that's come of it. So thank you all for sharing some of those insights and what some of your teams are doing. It's really great stuff. And I think at this point, we're going to jump into the audience Q&A. We have been getting quite a few questions. So this first one, it looks like there are a lot of similar questions like this. So the first question that we have here is coming in from Jeff, and it is, will live events remain an integral part of your marketing mix in the future? Which is a great question. So who would like to take that one?
I'll take that one. And the answer is absolutely yes. Nothing will ever take the place of face-to-face in-person events. You know, it's the core of our business. So I can say that with complete confidence. And, you know, I think it's been a good temporary replacement while we've been in quarantine and we haven't been able to meet face-to-face and travel like we would like to, but definitely won't take the place of people gathering together again, and hopefully one day really soon for live events.
Great. Anybody else want to jump in on that one?
I would just second that same thing. I think we've learned a ton, and I think there's going to definitely be opportunity to build that hybrid model or to think about how we could extend a live event into the virtual space. But I think even more so, people are going to be wanting to get back in a thoughtful, smart, intentional way, as we've all discussed. But I don't see that changing going forward.
We've got another one from Austin who asks, I love this, how do you combat the internal assumption that virtual events are quote unquote easy or require far less preparation or lead time and production to put on?
I can take that one. As we know, all virtual events are different. They come in different shapes and sizes. So we've taken the approach that we remind our clients regularly that lead time and preparation can take just as long as a live event, still with the mindset that we need to move quickly. And in this situation, if something goes wrong, we don't have the direct engagement with our audience. So we quickly would lose engagement and credibility. You can't see the audience to assess how they're reacting to our content. It's our job to meet the audience where they are. Their time is not their own at this point. They're working from home and a lot of distractions. It's critical when we do plan the client or the content that the attendees feel like it's beneficial. So we constantly remind our clients and our clients that we've got to plan on this. We've got to be thoughtful about this. In our industry, we make everything look easy, especially these events. And in these times, we continue to make it look easy, and that's sometimes our downfall. So constantly reminding our clients about timeline and budget is how we've been addressing that.
Great. Any other thoughts there, Charlie? I see you nodding your head.
Oh yeah, no, I would
You've
just
got
second
something
that.
to say, Charlie.
Well, it's definitely not easier. I'll tell you that. It's by no means is it easier. And I think Stephanie hit on a lot of it, but like the forcing function of even being more communicative with your stakeholders, with the people that you work with internally, externally, et cetera, on this is the process, this is what we're still learning, this is what we know, this is what we don't know. These are the potential things that could happen. And then try to work with them to really address those. I think it's just forced us to be much more, again, which she mentioned, we had this kind of environment before where people were like, oh, they got it. The events team has it. This is going to be awesome. And now we've just tried to be much more transparent in what we either don't know, what we do know, or how we can kind of work on all of this together. Because, for most of us, it's new for all of us. So, it's been really great for the team to just kind of build those relationships with internal stakeholders, with clients, et cetera, to just kind of be super transparent and kind of say that, we're in this together.
Great. We're also getting a lot of questions that are coming in around vendors and platforms. I know a few of you have mentioned some of the partners you've been working with. Would any of you care to share a little bit more detail on some of the platforms that have been successful, vendors that you partnered with? Charlie?
Oh yeah, I'm happy to jump in. Yeah. So we used, so Verizon recently acquired Blue Jeans, which is a platform similar to Zoom. They have an enterprise system and an event system. And so we used that for our big internal event last week. There have been, similar to the Fan Gauge tool, we've kind of just been now assessing a lot of the kind of add-on apps, for lack of a better word. So whether you use a Hopin as a platform, and then you want to add in another layer of networking, or if you want to add in a trivia component, we did some research on some trivia platforms, and if that was going to be a cool, happy hour networking experience that we did after the Blue Jeans experience. So we're kind of just, like before, when you kind of had your vendors and your agencies and the people that you kind of either had relationships with, we've been trying to do the same thing and really assessing, depending on the need and depending on the goal of the experience, what's the right platform and vendor out there. I think one of the things we've noticed is really starting back at ground zero, which is, what are the goals of the event? What are the specifics that the event is trying to achieve? And then from there work in, okay, well, this platform might work because you don't need two-way interactivity, or this one won't work because you can only have 6 breakouts with 10 people versus 20 breakouts with 30 people. So like, it's really going back to the basics of just asking the questions that you would ask in a live event, and then backing into, okay, well, this platform might work, this vendor may work, let's go talk to that agency. So, right now I wouldn't say we definitely don't have, we have just a running list and some experiments that have worked and not worked. And so, happy to share more examples on LinkedIn. I'll plug LinkedIn or something afterwards if anyone wants to chat.
That's great. I think if there's one thing that I've learned from this panel, it's making sure that you're thinking about your audience and the situations that they're in. So we want to make sure that we aren't taking up too much of everyone's time, and we're learning that we can condense content into a shorter time frame. So we're just going to ask one more question, and then we'll wrap things up a bit, just to give everyone a little bit more time back in their day. But I do really love this question that just came in from Monica, just opening this up to the group. What have you all been most proud of during this time of pivoting?
I'll jump in on that. I am most proud of how our team has come together, and by team, it's our clients, our stakeholders, my team, and IT, and everyone that's had to touch any of these projects to get the messaging out there. We've had to work together, like everyone, in a way never before. And so I am most proud of how we've all gotten through this, considering the situation, working from home during a crisis situation, and still everyone keeping their cool, and everyone collaborating and constantly communicating, and to our families there to support us through all of this as well.
Great. All right. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I think that's all the time we're going to take for questions, unless anybody wanted to add to that one.
I'll add just one thing. I totally second what Stephanie said. I heard when you started the question, I immediately thought of the team as well. And I don't know how I would have gotten through this if it wasn't for the awesome team that's around me every single day and what they've been able to do, you know, in the midst of everything else that they have going on personally. This being unknown for all of us, no one really came into the space experts in the virtual event space. So big props to all of the kind of event professionals out there who have, you know, weathered the storm and will continue to weather it. And, you know, and I think we'll come out of it on the other end on the better side. So thank you.
Great. Thanks, Charlie. I do want to confirm one more time, because we're getting a couple of questions whether we're recording this. So yes, we are recording the panel. We will be distributing it to all registrants following the event, likely tomorrow morning. So you will have it accessible forever and ever and to re-reference and revisit. So with that, I think, Kristen, we're going to move into a little quick video, right? I don't know if Kristen's frozen, but all right. So again, thank you for all of the questions and all the information that the panelists shared today. Before we conclude, we wanted to showcase a quick 1-minute demo reel from Agency EA. This is something our team has been working on to demonstrate how you can leverage broadcast technology for virtual events. So if I can have our team go ahead and roll that video for us.
A custom branded virtual environment can come to life while physically in a space like this. Virtual broadcasting has tons of possibilities. We're going to take you through just a few. Now we have Claire, Grace, and Rick dialing in from their remote webcams. Hi guys!
Whether in the studio or at home like us,
we can bring presenters and viewers from across the country and globe together seamlessly.
Hi Eliza, yeah, how cool is this?
Yeah, this is very cool. What we can offer is a solution that's realistic in today's environment, versatile, adaptive, efficient, affordable, scalable, and far-reaching.
We love this as a totally unique opportunity for sponsorship. 20 seconds is correct. Nice job, Team 2.
The beauty of this capability is that it's extremely customizable and versatile.
Thanks again, Dave and the tech team who've been managing all this on the back end for us. If you like what you saw and you want to learn more, visit agencyea.com or contact us at newbusiness@agencyea.com. We also have a longer version of that video that dives even deeper into EA's virtual event expertise. Again, thank you so much to our panelists for their incredible insights today, as well as you, the audience, for joining and watching our first ever virtual panel with Event Marketer. It was great to be with you all. Again, we're happy to wrap a little bit early and give everyone some time back in their busy days. So thanks for joining us. We hope to see you again soon, whether virtually or in person. Cheers to all of you. Thanks again.
Thanks.